Hey everyone, this is Hanif Azim, trainer here at Finite Dermatology. Today we're going to go through the components of eClinicalWorks, ECW. Just going to do a quick introduction to the different components that you'll be using and selecting while you are in the system. Once you get logged into ECW, we're going to start off seeing this first screen. It's a big gray screen here with the times of the different appointments that you're going to be looking at. We're going to start off by looking at the component that you use to log out. So if you actually look up at the top there where my initials are, HA, for you, you'll have your initials there. Just click on the down arrow there, and then it's going to bring up the options for you that are going to give you the ability to log out. Now, at the end of the day, or if you're going to be away from your computer for an extended amount of time, like going to lunch or something like that, you want to make sure that you go ahead and hit the log out button. Make sure you log out before, instead of hitting just the X in the top right corner, because it can cause some problems with the things still running in the background. So just make sure you log out when you're going to be away for a while. Now let's go ahead and click on the menu up in the top left corner of your screen. Looks like 3 lines there, also known as a hamburger. If you click on that, it's going to pull up this menu on the left hand side of your screen. We're going to click on Practice. Now, once we click on that Practice button, it's going to bring us to the this list of items, but we're really looking for the resource scheduling item. Now we're going to click on that. Once you click on Resource Schedule, that's actually going to pull up the calendar that has all of the appointments that we are going to be looking for. So when you click on a particular day, in this example you can see it's the 11th of April, it will also show right underneath that where it says My Provider's At. It shows the location that you have selected, in this case Sheepshead Bay, and it shows the name of the provider that is in clinic on that day, and this time it's Igor Romanov. Also below that, under My Resources, sometimes there will be other things listed such as PT schedules, laser schedules, nurse visit schedules, search removal schedules, all types of other things, and you can they differ from one clinic to the next, what you'll see down there. So once you actually click and select Igor's checkbox next to Igor Romanov's name, you will see that this nurse practitioner schedule pops up on the right hand side of your screen. And as you're looking at it, you just have the gray area, the dark gray area that is just the regular, base of the schedule template. And then you see all these different appointments that pop up here. There's gray and yellow ones here on his schedule. The yellow ones are for new patients. The gray ones are for follow-ups. Those colors can differ from one provider to the next, and also from one clinic or location to the next as well. So I don't want you to look so much at the colors, but I want you to make sure that you're paying attention to the words that are in each one of these appointment slots. So for instance, at 9 o'clock you have a 1-1 F-up follow-up, Sheepshead Bay Vanguard. Right next to it, still at 9 o'clock, you have a double book where it is another 101, but this one's a new patient for Sheepshead Bay. So you'll see that you have the appointment, and these are all open. You see that there's no names of a patient that's in these different slots, which means that they're open for you to schedule. And in order to start that process, you would just double click on that particular appointment that you want. So moving on, you can look up at the top middle of your screen and you'll see that there's a facilities drop-down menu right there, and you can go ahead and click on that facilities drop-down menu, and in here it will have access. It will show you all of the different clinic locations that you have access to do scheduling for. For some of you, you'll have all of the different clinics across the country. For others of you, you may just have just a few facilities for your own particular clinic, and just depending on your role and how you were set up. But for each of the ones that you have access to, you can see them here. In order to change from one facility to another, what you'll actually want to do is click the top where it says Select All, click the little box next to that, which is going to highlight all of the different clinics that are in the list. Once you have done that, you will click that Select All again, which is going to deselect all of the different clinics that you had just selected. And the reason for that is because sometimes it can get confusing, where you may think that you have all of the clinics deselected and you want to select a new one, but then you do it and you actually have 2 different locations selected at the same time. And then when you go to schedule an appointment, you may be telling the person the wrong location that their appointment is actually scheduled at. So to prevent that confusion, what I want you to do is hit Select All, deselect all, and then find the one that you want and select that. So I've done the select all and deselect all function, and now I'm going to select Staten Island for Vanguard. So I'll click on Staten Island, then hit the OK button, and you'll see that it pops up a different provider here. And you see that this location, and I have currently on this, looks like the 14th of April, but on this location I have Balacos, and I also have Rodriguez as different providers for this day. Now, the only provider of the two that I actually have selected though is Balacos, and you'll see that this is the schedule for that provider, and this one the colors are different, just like I talked about earlier. And this one the colors are purple, this lavender purple color for the follow-up appointments, and then the new patient appointments are this more of a slate dark blue color. And so you'll still, like I said earlier, want to make sure that you're reading what's in the slot, the appointment slot, not so much as worrying about the color of it. So to make sure that you're scheduling the right thing in the right place. Now, once you have gotten through and changed to that location, you can also look at some other buttons at the top here. The first one that we're going to look at is the days of the week button here at the top. I can select right here where it says one day, and if I click on that, it's going to give me a drop down that will give me the options of 1 day, of 5 days, or 7 days. And so basically that's just going to show you how many different days of the week that you want to look at the same time on the schedule. So I have it selected as 1 day right now, so I'm just seeing 1 day's appointments. But if I select it as 5 instead, then I'm going to see this particular provider's whole week. If they're on other days as well, I'll see those days scheduled at the same time also. So especially good for returning patients. If you know that this patient is seeing a particular provider, you can select that provider, select 5 days, and then just click 1 day on the calendar, and it's going to show you the whole week at a time. So you can scroll through and find the openings a lot quicker. The next little button drop down menu that we can look at here at the top is going to be for the amount of time that the schedule appears in. So right now we have 5-minute increments selected. So as you see right here, you'll see 8 o'clock, 8:05, 8:10, 8:15. Now this provider has 10-minute appointments, so each appointment slot spans 2 of the times over here on the left of it, to the left of it, or to the far right also. If I were to change that to 10 minutes, then you would see that instead of 8 o'clock then 8:05, it would only say 8 o'clock then 8:10, and each of these appointments would be butted up against just one time frame. Now this becomes important because different providers have different length of appointment times. For more of the doctors, a lot of times their appointments are shorter. Some of them can be as short as 10 minutes or even 5 minutes, depending on how many patients this particular provider sees in a day. And then for some of the nurse practitioners or PAs, you may see longer appointments, some being 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or even 30 minutes at times, depending on how long they've been with the practice. So what I normally suggest is that you go ahead and keep your time frame on 5 minutes, because that way you're going to see everyone's schedule perfectly, versus if you put it on one of the higher numbers of minutes per increment, it can kind of squish things together a bit and make things a little harder to read and understand. The next item that we're going to look at is the refresh button. This one that looks like an arrow that's going around in a circle. That one basically just refreshes your screen just like any web browser does, and so you can use that to just make sure that if you've made changes, canceled appointments, or scheduled new appointments, that you can refresh it to make sure that everything's up to date. This next button is the patient lookup button. This is going to be an important one that we're going to use all the time to look up patients, to determine if they're new patients or returning, so on and so forth. So if you click on the button right here, it looks like a person with a magnifying glass. And if you click on that, then it's going to pull up this next screen, which is going to be our patient lookup screen. Now we normally are going to look up our patients using their date of birth first, and then their name as a secondary lookup piece of information. So once you put in the date of birth here, and as you're putting in the date of birth in this field, you do not need to put the slashes, just the numbers only. So go ahead and put in the numbers, and so in this example you see I put in June the 9th of 1959 as the date of birth, and as you see it brought up a whole list of patients who have that same date of birth. Now I'm going to start typing in the last name of the person. And you can use, I usually will put in just like 3 or 4 letters. I won't normally put in the whole last name, just because if something maybe spelled incorrectly, or if I'm spelling incorrectly, I have a better chance of finding it. But anyway, so this is a test patient. They're not a real person, obviously, but then as I put in test, you can see that it narrowed it down to just the one person I'm looking for. And so if I go ahead and I click on that person's name, then it's going to take me to the patient's hub. The patient hub is a very important area. It's going to have a lot of information, basic information for your returning patients. That's going to be very important to you. So at the top here, you can see that it has the type of insurance the person has, when the last voice message was left with the person, a spot for their PCP, their rendering provider. Remember, that is the person that they're going to be seeing at our clinic, their primary provider here at our clinic. Also, their default facility, so that's the location that they are normally going to for care. Also, there's to the left of that, there's a little bit of some basic information like the person's address. It'll have their name there normally, their date of birth. Sometimes they'll have their phone number listed there as well. If we scroll down to the bottom of that page, you're going to see where it has an appointment box here, and it has the last appointment this person came to, as well as the next appointment that they'll be going to. So you'll see their last one was the 27th of April in this case, and they have an upcoming one 2 days later on the 29th. It also shows a location for each of those appointments. Now, over on the left-hand side of this patient hub, there are several buttons. One of the most important to us when we're doing a phone job is going to be the Encounters button. So clicking on that Encounters button is going to take us to a list of all the appointments that have been scheduled for this patient, whether they've come to that appointment or not. Once we've clicked on the Encounters button, it's going to pull up this list. As you see, it has all of the different appointments that have been scheduled for this patient. Now, these have different statuses, and that's the disposition of the appointment at this time. Some of them you can see that they were canceled, that's CANC. Some say canceled provider, CANC PROV. Some of them say pending, that means that they haven't come to this appointment yet, so on and so forth. So make sure that you are looking at this encounter screen so that you can verify all appointments for a person. One thing that's important for you to remember is that for appointments that our patients, their appointments are going to be scheduled as returning patients as long as they've been seen in the last 3 years. If it's been more than 3 years since they've been to our clinic, we are going to consider them as new patients at that point in time. So that's an important reason why you would come to this encounter screen. Also, if you're trying to find a patient's appointment when they call in, say you wanted to cancel the appointment, they're asking to cancel or reschedule, this is going to be the fastest way for you to find the appointment is by looking them up, coming to the patient hub, and then clicking on the encounters so you can see when their next appointment is. Now, while we're down here, you can also look, if you click on the box next to the appointment, like I did here for this appointment on 5/17, if you go ahead and click on that box there, and then you click on the button at the very bottom that says View Logs, it will give you a log of everyone who has touched this appointment. So it may be someone who has created it, like in this case. If someone rescheduled it, you'll see that on there as well. So other things like that, anytime someone makes a change on an appointment, it's going to show up here on the logs. So that can be important to remember, because sometimes a patient may be calling in about something and you're not quite sure why the person who scheduled it or changed it did what they did, and you may want to reach out to them, and you can find the username for that person here. We can also look here on the encounter screen and see at the very bottom there's this button that says View Appointments. So if we click on whichever appointment that we want to look at, and in this case I'm going to click on the appointment that is on the date of May 17th again, and then I hit the View Appointments button. First, what happens is it brings up this alert box, and this is a box where you can put notes, whether it's billing notes or other global notes and things like that. But You always want to look at this when it comes up because you want to see if there's any notes in there that are relevant to whatever you're doing. If there's not, you can just go ahead and hit the OK button down here to move past it. But if there are notes in there that are relevant, make sure you do what they're asking you to do. Now, once you get past that, it's going to pull you up the appointment screen here. And as you can see here, this has all the information about this appointment that was made. Now, we're going to get into this a little deeper once we get into the scheduling trainings. We're not going to go through all of the different fields on the screen in this particular training, but just know that this is what the appointment scheduling tab looks like. Now, I do want to go ahead and look at the info button at the top of the screen though, because the info button is going to have a lot of good information that we need to go through as well for the patients, where we'll update it or add it when we're adding it new. When you go through the new patient account training, you're going to see this, and this is primarily where you're going to be working to add in all the patient's information. If they need to update their addresses or phone number, you'll come here and do that as well. As this is where we verify insurance and things like that also. So all of this area here is going to be information that we're going to be entering in for our patients as we're scheduling them, or verifying for our patients as we're getting them scheduled. So you'll become very familiar with this particular patient information screen. All right, and that wraps up all of our buttons and things like that we're going to go through in our basic component training. There's a lot more to see and a lot more you can do here in ECW, but these are just the very basics that you'll use when you are working in the contact center. If you have other questions, feel free to reach out to your trainer, and as always, we will do practice.